Hello everyone and welcome to Project One Sky's Amy Interviews series. My name is Amy and I'll be your host throughout the series. Today I am speaking with Tony Griffin. Tony is an ex-Clare hurler who was nominated for an All-Star 3 times and was included into the GAA All-Star team as a left corner forward in 2006. He has since founded the SOAR Foundation, which is a collective movement that delivers workshops to Irish teenagers across the country. He has also written 2 books, including The Teenager's Book of Life, which I recently read and I would highly recommend for both teenagers and their parents. I had a great time interviewing Tony and I really hope you enjoy the interview too. Hi Tony, thanks a million for coming on to talk to me today. I've read your book and I think it's a brilliant read, and I'm so grateful to have you on here to answer my few questions. So I'll start off.
Pleasure.
Thank you. I'll start off. What inspired you to write The Teenager's Book of Life? And I think, where did you just get the idea for the book?
I think what inspired me to write it was I'd spent 9 years working with teenagers through an organization that I co-founded called SOAR. And in these workshops, very often, Amy, I'd meet people like you, 16, and I'd get this, like, my mind blown that there was so much more going on for you, and you were so much wiser than most people would realize. And adults very often look at teenagers and go, they're just teenagers, but they don't realize actually they can be really wise, really intuitive. And I just thought that the more I learned about how we educate teenagers, educate people at all, it hasn't changed since I was in school. Yet when I was meeting thousands of teenagers, I realized, hold on, we're missing helping them understand their life and their place in the world, in a way that they need to understand it in order to go on and fulfill who they are. And so I just said to myself, I was actually working on a different book. And then I met someone who said, but surely you're going to do something in all those years talking to teenagers. And I said, no, I don't really think I will. And then one day I started, and it just kept coming. So I wrote it as a way to, I suppose what inspired me to write it was, I just thought it could be better how we educate, connect with teenagers. And there was loads of things I'd wished at 15 I had known about the world, that someone had just told me that this is going to happen, but you won't be the only one going through it, or that is going to happen, but don't worry, it'll be okay. Yeah. And so I just wish someone had pulled me aside and said that. So I said, well, I'm going to say it and maybe it'll help someone. And now it's helping a lot of people, which is great.
It is. And I really, like, me myself, from reading the book, it really did help me, even going forward in my own life, in school, going further on into college. I just want to maybe go back. Could you take me back to yourself as a 16-year-old like me? You grew up in County Clare, and if you could give yourself as a teenager one piece of advice, what would it be?
Well, when I was 16, like, I know sport's a big thing in your life. When I was 16, sport was a big thing in my life. I played hurling, I played football, like Gaelic football, and I played soccer or football. And I loved all 3, but I think where I grew up, hurling was particularly popular, and it was the main show in town, really. And when I was 16, I was really starting to break onto the Clare scene. So I was like playing under 16. I was getting ready to play minor. And I don't think I believed in myself enough. I thought I saw all my deficiencies. Like, I saw that I was tall and lanky and skinny and thin, that maybe I wasn't powerful and strong. I saw all my deficiencies, and I've overlooked my huge amount of positive attributes. So I think if I was to walk into, me as 16, this is kind of weird to kind of put this all together, but if I was to walk over to myself as 16, I'd say, look, man, you're going to go on and play for Clare, so don't worry about that. You're going to play in Croke Park. All your dreams are going to come true. So do you know what? Just relax. It's all going to happen. As I say that, I'd probably say the same to myself now.
That's it.
Yeah. But yeah, and I just say to myself, look, keep reminding yourself of all the good things you have in your arsenal, because very often I would have looked at what I didn't have, and it drove me on, but it also meant I didn't always enjoy the journey as much as I could have.
Yes, perfect. You mentioned earlier on the SOAR Foundation,
Mm.
where you worked with hundreds, probably even thousands of
Oh
teenagers,
yeah.
just talking to them. I would just
Mm.
like for the people listening, if you could kind of give them a brief insight into what the SOAR Foundation is, or what they do to help
Yeah.
teenagers.
Yeah. So the big thing about SOAR was I had my own difficult period in 2008, 2009. My dad had died from cancer a few years beforehand. I was living in Canada at the time, so I didn't get to come back and see him before he died in his last hours. And so my way of dealing with that grief was to do something. And that something was to cycle a bicycle from one side of Canada, from Vancouver to Halifax on the other side, so 7,000 kilometers. And it raised a lot of money. That summer alone, it
Yeah.
raised around €500,000. But afterwards, I realized I still hadn't dealt with the grief. And that's one of the things that, like, there's a chapter on death in the Teenager's Book of Life, because no one had ever probably had a conversation with me and said, look, you're going to go through what's called grief, and this is what it's going to feel like. So I just blindly stumbled through it. And in 2008, I suppose, would have had a very rough year mentally, a very dark year, and a year that I look back now and I can say, oh, that was a blessing. But at the time, it just felt horrendous. So then in 2010, I saw a documentary on RTE about this guy called Jim Steins, and he was doing stuff down in Melbourne in Australia with young people that was really interesting to me. I didn't really know why, but something kind of drew me in that direction. And I went to Melbourne, and myself and another guy studied what Reach did. That's what they were called, Reach. And we said, this makes sense. Of course, at that age where you're trying to figure out who you are, where you want to go, wouldn't it be amazing to actually be able to take off the mask that everything's great, and I just take that off and put it aside and say, look, this is actually who I really am, and I'm not sure about this. And my parents argue, and sometimes I don't want to be at home, and I fell out with my friend last week, but I really like him, and now we're not mates. And fancy this girl, don't think she fancies me because I don't. All this stuff. Imagine if we could just throw that out and talk about it. Imagine how much easier it would be. And that's what Reach did. And so we just said, let's bring this to Ireland. And it was cool. It wasn't like a soppy self-help group. It was cool. The facilitators were cool. The conversations were real. They felt like they were alive. And so what SOAR does in its essence is it helps young people make the transition from childhood to adulthood in such a way that they have a strong character. So they're resilient. They understand, they're self-aware. They understand who they are. They have a sense of where they want to go with their life. They know what they're going to need to do to get there. And they're finding who they are. Now, they do it in schools. We've been doing it for 9 years, and it's really effective. So it's funny, the one thing I loved about SOAR was it felt so real.
Yeah.
Like for 3 hours, I could be running a SOAR workshop, and I'd hear about, maybe a kid who had but like 15, who had an eating disorder. And someone else would stand up and say, I used to have that. This is what I did to overcome that. And that's what I mean by I got to learn how wise people are when they're telling their stories honestly. And then I'd come out of those workshops, after 3 hours, and I go into everyday life. Like, you drive out of the school and I'd be like, oh my God, every other part of life is so gray.
Yeah.
Because it's all fake and false, and everyone's just trying to pretend that they have all figured out when they don't. And I would just having left this group of teenagers that were so inspiring. So I was living these two lives. And over time, I realized that the one that happened with teenagers was the world I wanted to live in. And so with my friends, I started having those conversations. And then we'd have different relationships then, because I'd say maybe a friend of mine would, be quiet, and I'd say, what's going on? They'd say, oh, nothing. I'd say, no, there's something going on. And I know there is. And then they'd talk to me about, well, I miss my dad. I hadn't seen him in years. And so we had these amazing friendships, and they were all built on what I learned from teenagers.
It's such a great insight. I think, as you said, talking. It's just about talking, really opening up, and it can be so difficult, especially if you're going through a hard time. But even from me, talking is your best option, I think.
Yeah, because we're all trying to make sense of where we're at in our life. And some people they'll sail through childhood, sail through teenage, and then they'll hit hard times when they're 30 or 40. Whereas others meet them earlier. You know, they might be adopted at an early age and have difficulties in the foster family. There's so many ways to live a life.
Yeah.
But I just think it's so much more meaningful when we actually get to talk about that. And that doesn't mean you're pouring your heart out. Sometimes you'll be laughing through the tears. Sometimes we no tears at all. But it's let's be honest, like, about life. Let's not pretend, but we're so afraid that we won't, you know, we'll appear weak, or we'll appear like we don't have life figured out, when if we dropped our guards, everyone else would see they can't do. And that's what SOAR does brilliantly. And that's what I think I try to do in the book, is allow people a chance to just drop their guards and admire themselves for who they are, rather than think that they're the only one.
I also feel like maybe if at least one person dropped their guard, as you said, it could maybe be like a domino effect, a chain effect, and it could just change the whole insight, you know.
Completely.
Working with the teenagers you've worked with, I'm interested in kind of the big issues you saw in you know, your own facing teenagers, and in your opinion, what pressures face teenagers living in today's world?
Oh, such a good question, because there are so many in some ways. So different things came up, like everything from identity, you know, that might be, I don't know who I am, or it might be regret about something that happened in their lives. That could be identity around sexuality, or, you know, on multiple occasions people came out in the workshop, which I always thought was amazing, because 99 times, every time, never once did I not see it. People admired them for that, because it took courage. But very often it's just something's happened to them, Amy, like, you know, maybe it's their parents are divorced and didn't go well, or their granny died and they never talk about it because they don't want to upset their parents, or they've fallen out with a friend, just life. But obviously a lot of the issues will be self-harm, or people teenagers who'd gone through particularly difficult episode in their life, like depression. No one knew about it. Maybe even their best friend didn't know about it. They just did it on their own. Things like that. And then there was many things where social media, obviously massive, the whole pressure to fit in, the pressure to, you know, you see other people on Instagram and they look like they're having an amazing life. You look at your life and you say, well, I'm not measuring up my life in comparison to that. And so there's a lot of almost a lack of self-acceptance and lack of reality, that life isn't what you see on Instagram for any of us, not always. So a range of issues, but I would say just life issues. The big one at the moment, I think, for a lot of teenagers is, and I'm seeing this more and more, is how school isn't working for them. For some who are highly academic, it works well, but even for those, there's still something missing in that's the part SOAR would bring, a sense of, I can really come in here and be myself. Whereas for a huge amount, I'd say maybe 75-80%, school isn't working for them, and they're dropping out because they don't feel inspired by it. They feel like, if anything, is draining them of life. So I think school at the moment is a big challenge, and obviously with COVID and everything that's going on, it's impacting teenagers the most, because like teenagers, that stage of life is all about meaning, like looking for meaning, novelty, and social connection. All three things are taken away when you can't freely socialize.
COVID has been even a big impact on my own life.
I was just going to say, how's it impacted you?
Even the online learning, and it was just not being able to speak face to face with my friends, and it's gotten a lot better. I'm in TY now, and
are you, like, you're going into school, but is it
I'm going into school. Thankfully, my school, they've been great. And
what's your school, Amy?
Ashburn Community School.
I
live in County Meath.
I know it well. I was there many times running workshops.
Oh, really? Yeah. We've been doing loads of workshops.
Cool.
So it's brilliant. And even that, bringing people into the school kind of just opens your mind to loads of different things. And I think it's not just, as you said, like it's great for people who, you know, love studying and all this, like, but TY kind of opens it up to everyone can kind of get involved. There's a different place for everyone.
Yeah. And are you enjoying TY because of that?
Oh yeah, I'm loving it, really. Yeah,
that's great.
It's brilliant.
And that's maybe an example of what I think the future of school could look like, more like TY, where it's more about learning about life, learning about who you are.
That's it.
What fires you up? What would you love to do? Learning about yourself. My God, most important subject of all.
Basically, and even the first chapter in your book it's literally just, who am I? And I think it's the biggest question, you know.
Isn't it? I'm still asking it.
That's it. We go through so much different things in our life, and I think, as you said in that book, it always kind of goes back to that question. In every aspect.
Completely. Man, you're like the Buddha. You're so wise. You could be teaching this still. When are you going to write your book?
I don't know. On the topic of school, being a teenager, I can have loads of different fears and worries, kind of, so maybe even surrounding school some of the times. There's a very good quote in your book called "The antidote to fear is courage," and it kind of really stood out to me. I would just like for you, if you could explain it more in detail.
Yeah, so the thing that I learned over time, and I learned this from an amazing psychologist in a husband and wife team in California. And I used to think about, if I had fear, that was a weakness, there was something wrong with me, and I had to just smash that fear. And then I learned from them that, well, you can't actually ever get rid of fear, because there's a part of you, maybe a very young, childish part of you, that holds that fear. And so you acknowledge it, but you deal with it, I suppose, or you ensure that it doesn't run your life, by building courage. And you build courage by doing things which you find challenging or fearful, and doing them again and again and again. So it's almost like, by repetition, it dismantles a lot of the fear, or at least it shows the fear that it's going to be okay. And then they can live at the same time. You can have fear about, say, for example, public speaking, or doing this, like, you know, when I was coming online and says, okay, I hope I say all the right things. You can have that nervousness, but it's just like, it's like music in the background that you barely hear. You don't push it away. You don't turn it off. You say, I see you, I hear you, and it's okay, because I'm a big boy now and I can do this. And over time, you end up taking on more and more. So now I look back sometimes and I say to myself, if someone had said to me at 16, I would have done the things I've done in my life, I would have said, no way, that'll never happen. But for every one of them, there was a certain amount of fear involved. But the more I did, the more courageous I got, the more comfortable I got. And I think that's the real antidote to fear, is just to go towards what frightens you, bit by bit by bit. And over time, you'll build almost like more courage muscle to offset the fear muscle.
That's it. And it's even that kind of relates to me a lot at the minute, because
right, go on.
Stepping out of my comfort zone in TY is, you know, I'm like, I've played football since I was 8. I've been dancing, like, you know, trying to learn dance routines and everything. But that's another story.
It sounds like a good story.
Yeah.
How are you getting on with stepping out of the comfort zone?
Oh yeah, I'm actually really enjoying it. I've learned. I think you can learn so much from just giving something a go.
Yeah.
Like, even if you think people will look at, you know, it's all like judgment. You talk about judgment in your book. But I feel like if you're confident within yourself, which can be hard to. Yeah. It can even, you know, just to say, or just to step outside that comfort zone and just do what you want, not do what you want to do, but do what you like.
Do what you'd like to do.
Yeah, you like to do.
Because the comfort zone is like that fearful part of us. There's a part that almost protects that part. I talk about in the book, by building a certain kind of, you're allowed to wander this far outside. It's like, you know, you're a little child and your mum will let you go so far away from her in the supermarket or wherever. But if you go too far, she'll tell you to come back. It's the same. It'll only allow you to stray so far outside of what it thinks you're capable of. But the truth is, we're capable of so much more than we think we are. And you're learning that firsthand. but you'll only do that by stretching your comfort zone. And you talked about judgment, like it's one I left out. That's probably the biggest fear of all teenagers. But in reality, it's the biggest fear of all of us, even adults, is what will the neighbors think? What will my wife think? What will my husband think? What will my parents think? And when you are able to live independently of all those opinions, magic starts to happen.
Yeah.
Because you come from who you are and what you're here to do, not what you think everyone expects you to do. And like I read once that the number one regret of those that are dying is that I wish I'd lived a life true to myself, not what I thought others expected of me. So,
being true to yourself is
yeah,
such a big thing. I think you talk in your book about a person's head, heart, and soul.
yeah.
I think for me, I think if I think in my head, first of all, like if this person's going to judge me, what will I do? How will I think? What, things like this.
Yeah.
If I dive deeper into myself, into my heart, maybe,
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I really, I can do this, or I can be myself, and things like this.
Yeah, exactly. And that's practice. Like a lot of people never get that. You're getting it at 16. To be able to run two channels at the same time. There's the head, which is noisy, and then there's the heart, which is quieter, which is, no, Amy, it's cool. You got this. You can do this. And that's once you start cultivating that, that's the antidote to the fear.
Yeah. I just, for other teenagers listening to this, even in my own school or anywhere, could you explain to them how their head, heart, and soul could apply or influence their life in any positive or negative ways?
Absolutely. So your head is your thinking mind. Your head is everything you believe about the world. It's all the rules you've learned, usually from your parents or teachers, and some of them are good. Don't touch the fire. Like we're training our 2-year-old now. He's not, or 1.5-year-old. He's got it now. He doesn't touch the fire. But we learn a lot of rules, and we think that we're going to get burned if we defy them. But some of them aren't the rules that suit us. Like don't speak in public, you'll be laughed at. Some people have that rule in their head, and it holds them back. So the head rules you, tells you what to do, and it's usually frightened. It's frightened of being judged. Your heart is that part that's underneath that, and it's a bit quieter and says to you, and is almost like what you feel and what your feelings are about something. So it might be, don't you might be judged if you say that. Your head will say, your heart will say, but that's what you really believe. So why don't you say it? And it's always encouraging you. Now, your soul is deeper again. Your soul, to me at least, and this is only one person's opinion, your soul is who you really are. It's what you've come here to do. Whether you're 16 or you're 66, your soul is like the inside chamber of who you are. And it wants you to get bigger and expand and sing that song. It doesn't want you to die with your music still in you. It wants you to break all the boundaries and go for it, whether that's ask that guy out or it's, get up on stage and sing. It wants you to expand. Your head will tell you, Jesus, don't they laugh at you? Your heart will say, maybe they won't. Your soul will say, go for it.
I think go for it leads me straight on to my next question.
Oh, you're good.
Your head, your heart, and your soul, for me reading the book, at where the point I am in my life now, shine through in dreams and direction. For me, I think in school at the minute, when we go back after Christmas and all, will be, what subjects are you picking for your leaving cert? What college course do you want to do? All, but I think deeper, their teenagers could maybe think of the dream, that one dream that they have. And I suppose how would you, what are your opinions on teenagers following their dreams with the direction they want to go in their life?
Wow, it's a big question. It's the most important thing ever because, our dreams are so important. When I was 13, I knew I wanted to play in Croke Park. I wrote on the back of my sister's door in chalk, I want to play for Clare. I want to win an All-Star. I want to win All Ireland. Now, we didn't win All Ireland, but the other two things
Yeah.
happened. So I think that we talked about soul. I think the dream of who we want to be, it's locked inside us. And the job of our life is to kind of find the codes to break the lock. And it's different for every person, but also the dream can change. So once for me, it was to play for Clare, and now it is to talk to as many people around the world about what we're talking about right now, to try and talk to millions of people about this. So the dream changes, but it's never too early to start asking yourself the question, what do I want to become? Where do I want to go? Who do I want to become? Now, there may not be a course in the CEO that will fit that. And, you know, I really respect teachers. I think it's an amazing job to do. And I respect what schools do, but they're not the full answer. And so if I was speaking to my 16-year-old self, I would say to myself, become a writer now. Whereas I thought I had to go and do what, you know, I had to get a really serious job. I didn't think writing could be a job. So I didn't do it till I was 39, you know, last year. So I would say to any teenager, listen to this. The main function of school is helping you identify who you want to be and where you want to become. But you may not choose the subjects. You might choose the subjects that suit who you are, what you like to do. The more you do what you like to do, you start to love what it is and you become really good at it. And someone will pay you to do that thing. So try it when you're looking at the subjects you're picking. Pick the ones you love to do, because you're going to spend 2 years making yourself do it. And choose the direction that you think you'd love to go in. If you want to be, like I met someone the other day, he's 2 years older than you, and he went through a really difficult time at the start of the pandemic. He just couldn't leave the house. Then he couldn't leave his bedroom. He missed months of school. He had to go for help. And while he was getting help, he met this psychiatric nurse who was so amazing that he now wants to be a psychiatric nurse. Now he's saying, I don't even want to continue doing the leaving. I just want to go and become that nurse now. Yet he's doing business and he's doing physics and chemistry and stuff. So he knows he's just waiting to leave school. So he can go and do what he really wants to do. And there's some people watching this who academics might not be the thing for you, but follow your heart, follow your dream, and ask the question, if money wasn't an object, what would I like to do with my life? And that will lead you to the money.
It definitely will. I think, for me anyway, I'll pick my subjects based on, you know, my interests and at the time, and then I feel like it will lead me in the right path.
Totally. I'm telling you, I have done a lot, 50, 60, maybe 100 interviews since the book was published. This is the best one I've done because your questions are so interesting. So there's no stopping you.
I really appreciate that.
Tell Ray Darcy that if you see him.
My last question.
The last.
Okay. for the long style question. There's a section I really enjoyed in your book. It was a very small section called I See You. And it lists different situations teenagers could find themselves in. Some are very positive, some are very negative. I just read here some examples for the people listening. I see you smiling, that beautiful 1 in a 7 billion smile. Or I see you too scared to open your mouth in case they laugh at you. And I was just wondering, what advice would you give any teenager out there listening, just living their day-to-day life in a positive way?
Just advice in general, is it?
Yeah.
Like, so
just to finish out.
Why I wrote that book, or wrote the book, well, this is why I wrote the book, but where I See You came from was, I just remember so many faces of teenagers I met, and I knew that sometimes all we want is to be seen for who we are, even if we don't know who that is. We just want to be seen. So I wrote to all the faces that I'd seen saying, I see you, and it's okay. It's okay. It's going to be okay. And you're okay. So in terms of living a positive life, I'd say it's going to be okay. That doesn't mean everything's just going to happen magically, even though that can happen too. But just trust that if you can listen to yourself, you're wise and you'll find your way. Your parents might not understand that, your teachers might, but you are wise and you know the way. So just trust yourself. And like everyone that you think is looking at you and might be judging you, they're too busy thinking about themselves and whether or not everyone's looking at them and judging them. So take a break, give yourself a little break, kiss that mirror once in a while, as they say in the book, when you're walking past it, and tell yourself you're hot and someone's going to love me. So just keep doing what you're doing and relax. It's going to be okay.
I think just let life go on the up and down of a roller coaster.
It is, and it all changes. Like everything passes. So you might have the most amazing night out. It will end. You might have a week where you feel like, you're worried about your own mental health. That will pass as well. Things pass. And again, back to it, underneath that wave, there's the wise, strong you. And that's the other thing. You're much stronger than you realize. Sometimes we don't realize how incredibly tough we are when we have to be. So just back yourself and it'll be okay.
I think that is back yourself and it'll be okay is an perfect point.
Put on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Like,
that quote and underneath it, Tony Griffin. Literally.
No.
I think it's
Tony
perfect.
and Amy, 2nd of December 2021.
Yes. That is the first section of
Brilliant.
The interview done. All the questions were perfect.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that.
We can move on to something more fun.
Come on.
Woohoo.
Let's do it.
A quick fire round I planned.
Okay, let's do it.
I have 5 questions,
and
I would just like you to answer the questions as honestly as you can. Just say it how it is.
Okay.
They're very lighthearted anyway.
Yeah, no, good.
Okay, wow. The first question. If you could only watch one movie going forward, what would that movie be?
You said these would be easy. I love movies.
Yeah, I know. In my opinion, that's probably the toughest question, even for myself.
So you can only watch one movie for the rest of your life.
That's it, yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
For me, I'm more on the...
Okay, go on.
For me, I'm more on the comedy side of movies.
Yeah, that's good. This is good. Yeah, go on.
It would probably be like a Mrs. Doubtfire or something.
Yeah, good one. If it was a comedy, I'd say Dumb and Dumber, the first Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah.
Or if it wasn't a comedy, probably something like Inception, because I've watched it 3 times and I don't understand it. So I think
might,
if I
as you
might
watch it, you might.
60.
Yeah. This one, not including the Teenager's Book of Life.
Yeah.
What would be your favorite book?
You're killing me here. You can't narrow that down to one. I would say it's probably a book called On the Road by Jack Kerouac.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Now he wrote it as high, like on drugs, so like you can see it's like crazy, but it's so brilliant. So brilliant. It's called On the Road.
Where is your happy place?
Oh, where is my happy place? I kind of think it's sitting on the couch when everyone's not in the house with the fire on, watching a movie. I think that might be my happy place.
Yeah. Probably going on from that, when you aren't working, what do you like to do to relax or look after your own well-being?
It's a good question, because the last 6 months have been some of the busiest months of my life, and I haven't always been great in the last 6 months, or at least I haven't prioritized my own well-being. I go to a trainer called Mary Holgrain, and she's amazing, and we have a great laugh. So I like to do that, and it's good for my well-being because we have a laugh. And I like, and I'm back working out, which I hadn't done in a few years, so that was good. But apart from that, I know it sounds crazy, but I love walking in the woods. I love the woods. So there's a woods near our house. I go sometimes if it's nice, especially if it's a nice morning. That's always good. I always come back.
Yeah.
But little things like a coffee with a friend, something that you haven't seen in a while, can be like just good for anything that's good for the soul.
Yeah, or even just a laugh. Laughter is the best medicine. Yeah.
Massive. Like we've had. Okay, keep going. What's coming next?
if you had to choose 3 words to describe yourself, which 3 would they be? Tough one.
Probably intense.
Yeah.
I used to think that was a bad thing, but now I think it's
No,
actually
yeah.
great. Probably intense, probably playful.
Mm-hmm.
I like to have a laugh, and curious.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those answers were absolutely brilliant. That's
Great.
the quick fire round. I don't know if you prepared the 2 truths and a lie, but you could kind of, if.
Okay, I've actually been playing this with my son a lot since I saw your question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll ask you to come up with, if you could come up with 2 truths and 1 lie about yourself. I will guess to see if I can
okay.
get the lie.
Okay.
And then we can just have a chat then.
Okay. 2 truths and a lie. Okay, I was going to say I have the lie, but I don't.
Okay. This can be hard, this one.
2 truths and a lie. 2 truths and a lie. Okay.
Yeah.
I punctured my lung twice.
Okay.
I have the strangest toes you've ever seen in your life. They're friggin' massively long. They're like fingers. I see dead people.
Okay, they are interesting, them ones.
Yeah.
The lie. So maybe the last one.
Yes, it's the last.
Is it?
One.
Yeah. I got it.
Yeah, well done. Although in fairness, that was out there, so like.
Oh, well, you never know.
Some people do see dead people. So.
That's it, yeah.
But it's just a line from movies. So.
That is brilliant. I really enjoyed this interview, and I really appreciate you for coming on to talk to me.
It was brilliant. It was so enjoyable. Genuinely, you are good at interviewing people.
Thank you.
So where is this going to be seen, or?
This like the interview. So basically, I'm doing my work experience with TY, for an Irish company called Project One Sky.
Okay.
Yeah, they basically do kind of, it's all well-being for students, courses and things like that. It's actually very interesting. And I decided that I would set up me and Colin, the founder, an interview series called Amy Interviews.
Nice.
Just to try and, for things like the book and all that, my own experience is kind of, reading that book. I think it would be amazing if kind of from this interview, at least one person out there,
that'd be amazing. Yeah,
read that book and got something from that, or even got just something from this interview. If one person just, took something away from it, I think that would mean something to me, at least.
Like the book is really amazing to me, because I never really thought beyond writing it where it was going to go, but like 15,000 people have bought it. Like, so it must be in a lot of homes around the country and around the world. A woman in Florida bought it the other day for her and her niece. Yeah, and they're doing a book club where her niece lives in Washington and she lives in Florida, and they're reading it together as their book club to kind of stay in connection with each other. So I think there's a lot of stuff in the book that can really help people.
Yeah.
So I'd love to see more getting a chance to read it.
Yeah. I think, it'd be brilliant.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, you're brilliant. And I'm brilliant.
Thank you.
So we're all brilliant.
Yes. Everyone out there.
Everyone.
Thank you so much, Tony, for coming on.
Thank you so much, Amy.
I really appreciate it.
Best luck with everything.
Thank you.